Hi, my name is April Henley. I author fantasies for all ages, and this is my book, Treasures in a Bottle, the world's first novel coloring book, an illustrated novel that you can color as you read. The story follows the wizard Merlin 100 years after King Arthur, and he must prevent magical creatures from disappearing from the world. As the world is moving out of the Dark Ages, people are losing their faith in magic, and if this continues, magical creatures will disappear into the nothing and never return. Merlin must come up with a plan to prevent this from happening, and as part of his plan, he ventures to the realms of fantastic beasts and beings to learn more about them, and we venture along with him. There are 50 illustrations in the book, all done by fantasy illustrator Brian Brindley. I am going to read to you a description of one of my favorite mythical creatures from chapter 3. Her name is Aquila, and she is the lead mare and matriarch of the winged horses. And then we'll jump ahead to chapter 8, where Merlin visits her in her realm. Unlike her non-winged cousins found in the stable, this equine creature was quite large. Merlin, himself a tall man, stood level with her withers. Her muscles bulged and her veins swelled. To be sure, she was a strong beast to be able to fly great distances. A chieftain mare not easily intimidated, yet she carried a constant grace in her appearance, in the way she moved. How now, with Merlin looking on, she tossed her grand head, her long white mane dancing in the air, and her starlit eyes conveyed glimpses of heaven. She was as white as the first winter's snow. She had no markings, no blemishes, and when the sun shone on her, she gleamed. She pawed at the earth with silver hooves and shook bits of cloud from her white feathered wings, the span of them twice that of her body. To her right was her unicorn cousin Apollo, and the two magical equines nickered softly to one another. That night, Merlin was in his cave eating supper when he heard the soft beating of wings, followed by the clopping of hooves. He stepped outside to inquire and was surprised to see a great black winged horse. Merlin. His voice was deep but gentle. Yes? My name is Orpheus. Aquila wishes an audience with you tonight. I am here to collect you. Now? Merlin looked at the moon, full and bright, creeping up in the sky. It was not late yet, but even if it had been, he supposed there was little chance he could or would refuse. He nodded once and said, "Let me grab my things." He scurried back inside to gather his satchel and put on his sandals. He hesitated when Orpheus whinnied till he heard another pair of wings, more powerful and familiar. "No need to fret," said Merlin, returning outside. He looked up and smiled to see Dryas' silhouette gliding across the night sky. "The Lord of Dragons does not sleep when the moon is high. No doubt he saw you coming." The dragon lord settled to the ground before them, dust whirling beneath him. "A late night visitor, Merlin." Orpheus snorted. "This is Orpheus. Aquila sent him to gather me for an audience." "I thought as much. Welcome, friend." Orpheus bowed low to Dryas. "My lord dragon, I did not mean to disturb you. I am only here for the wizard." "It is well you did disturb me, for I am coming with him." Orpheus shook his head. "My matriarch, your mare matriarch will not mind, I am certain. She and I get along well enough, and I swore at the great circle that I would accompany Merlin on these visits. So do not try to shake me off." He peered down at Orpheus, who took a couple steps back, but Merlin saw no hostility in the dragon's eyes. He was calm and spoke with emphasis. Orpheus snorted again. "As you wish, Lord Dragon, but we must hurry. The night is young, but its hours fly fast, and there is much Aquila wants to show the wizard." He walked over to the edge and spread his wings. Merlin raised a brow. "Show me." The winged horse looked back, his eyes deep and thoughtful, and nodded before leaping off and taking flight. "Well then, I best not keep her waiting. Ready, Dryas?" They flew through the still night in pursuit of Orpheus. Below, the earth slept, and so did most of creation. Somewhere a wolf howled, and its fellows returned its call. Shadows crept in the moonlight, sneaking and sliding over the landscape. Above, the air was crisp and clean, and the sky was clear and bejeweled with 1,000 stars. Merlin marveled at it. Look at them all up there. If heaven were a mine, and the dwarves could reach it, no substance on earth could compare with what is buried up there, he thought. Beautiful, he said under his breath. What is? Dryas had excellent hearing. The sky. I have flown with you by day several times now, but this is my first night ride. I think now I like it better than the day rides. The night sky is full of wonder. I wish I could reach up and touch it. How about you? Dryas chuckled. When I was a hatchling, I would gaze up at the stars and flap my wings so fast, so hard, I would tucker out. When finally I learned to fly, I went as high as I could go, but still the moon laughs and the stars tease, for I cannot reach them. Now I think if I was meant to reach them, I would have been made to do so. I suppose that is true. It is, but I was made with eyes to see them, and therefore love them, just as you, and that is enough for me. Merlin smiled. I wish I could say it is enough for me too, but I think I will always dream of more, Merlin said. Merlin said this as he gazed at the moon, that beautiful orb of silver which shone so bright it purged the world below of cold darkness. He was pulled from his thoughts when Dryas began his descent. Below them was a small vale surrounded by mountains. They had not flown far. Dryas and his fellow dragons occupied the east end of the mountains in the Dragon's Keep, while Aquila and her winged herd occupied the west end in this little valley that had come to be called the Valley of the Skies. Dryas settled on the lush grass, careful not to make too much noise. Most of the winged herd had lain down to rest. The mares had their wings spread around themselves and their foals to keep warm. Standing guard over them were 3 stallions, all big and strong. They watched the dragon and his passenger with mild interest. Wait here, said Orpheus. He walked over to the stallions. They nickered softly and spoke to each other in their own language. It was not long before he came back and said, Our mare matriarch is in the valley over. I shall fetch her. Please continue to wait here. We will, said Dryas. Orpheus turned and got a galloping start. He beat his wings, was up, and then disappeared over the crest of the mountain. Merlin slid off Dryas and looked around. The valley was green and full. The tender blades of grass reached over his sandals and tickled his toes. The rigid rock faces of the mountains made a high wall, keeping enemies out. The herd slept soundly. Every now and then a curious head poked through its mother's feathers to look in their direction, but its mother would nicker, no doubt telling the foal to sleep. Above them the stars twinkled, and there was a feeling that settled in all at once. Peace. It is so calm, so tranquil, Merlin whispered to Dryas. I do not remember a time or place where I felt so at ease. I must sketch this scene when we return home. Dryas grinned. I agree. It is serene, and it is good to see others safe and happy. This vale has been home to the winged horses for over 100 years, and no human can reach it, for the mountains are too steep to climb. That is good. He heard wings again, and over the crest appeared Orpheus with Aquila beside him. They swooped down and found the earth beneath their hooves, first cantering, then trotting, and finally walking over to Merlin and Dryas. Welcome, Merlin. Welcome, Dryas, said Aquila in a warm, quiet voice. Dryas bowed his head, and Merlin did the same. Thank you, Orpheus. Go join the others. Orpheus tossed his head and trotted over to the sleeping herd. He took his place and stood guard with the other stallions. We will not speak here, said Aquila. We will speak as we fly. Climb on, Merlin. She folded her wings and took a knee beside the wizard. Fly? Merlin was dumbfounded. They had just come here and she wanted to leave? Leave the quiet and stillness of her vale? I do not understand. You will. Hurry, the night is short. Merlin looked back at Dryas for reassurance. Go on, Merlin. I will be waiting here when you return. I thought you said you would accompany me on my visits. Merlin grinned. I saw you here. Where you go now, I cannot follow. He looked at Aquila, his eyes gentle and full of understanding. Is that not right? Aquila nodded. Come, Merlin, and leave your satchel. Merlin dropped his satchel beside Dryas. Then, careful of her wings, he hoisted himself onto Aquila's back. He had ridden horses many times before, but there was a distinct difference in how he felt astride a winged horse. He could feel the muscle and softness of her grandeur, and her strength. When she spread her wings, her body quivered, full of anticipation, and the way she tossed her head, excitement. She blew hot air, her sides rising and falling beneath him. She was power and grace. Hold tight, Merlin, she said. Merlin dug his fingers into her mane and held on. His heart pounded with the rhythm of her hooves as she began to run. When she beat her wings, he held his breath, exhaling only after she left the ground. Up they went, and he held tighter for fear he might slip off. Aquila galloped on air, her hooves still running, her wings beating. Higher and higher they climbed, and Merlin dared to look back over his shoulder. He caught his breath, shocked at how high they had ascended. The mountains looked so small. She is fast, he thought. She covered so much distance so quickly. She suddenly turned, no longer rising, and flew north. Where are we going? Merlin asked, looking over the winged horse's shoulder as the mountains swept behind them. Aquila nickered. You will see. She sounded happy and almost proud. How do you feel? Stunned, he laughed, a bit faint but full of excitement. Aquila chuckled. So I did not frighten you? No, no. Well, he looked over her shoulder again. The ground below was flat and green, fields of grass interspersed by forest and lakes. A snaking river, a farmer's field, and little towns, their lights snuffed out. Everything was so small, so far away, it looked like a map or a war table without the markers for its armies. We are just so very high up. I have never been this high. Dryas stays lower to the ground. I am certain he does that for you. He could venture this high with ease, but where we are going, even he cannot go, for only my kind can ascend to greater heights. Tell me, are you having trouble breathing? No. His answer was hesitant, nervous. That is good, but we are not done climbing. Merlin's eyes widened, and he gripped her mane before she could tell him to do so. There was a rolling wave of clouds up ahead, and Aquila charged at it, ascending again, beating her wings with a great deal of force. They entered the clouds with a silent whoosh. Merlin had never touched a cloud before. All around him was dark, and the air was damp. Like being in a great fog, he thought. He could just make out Aquila's white head, high, direct, ears forward, bracing against invisible, natural forces that hinder most from ascending any higher. With every beat of her wings, she breathed out, hot and heavy, like a war horse charging into the fray. As they rose, the air thinned, and Merlin struggled to take a breath. Aquila! He choked on her name. It was hard to speak this high up. Do not be afraid. I have you. Her voice was calm and reassuring, like a mother to a child. She whinnied, and a soft light emanated from her. It spread over Merlin, starting with his legs and climbing his frame, till he marveled at his glowing self. By the powers! He gasped. He could breathe. His lungs filled with the cool night air, and he had goose pimples all over. Your magic? Yes. She whinnied again, and they burst forth from the clouds. The glow around them faded, but the wizard was too occupied to notice. Surrounding them was a new world, a world of cloud towers, rolling fields of cloud, and great waves of a cloud sea. Some were thick and bulky, others thin and flat. Some made strange shapes, like beasts and ships and great hands. Merlin laughed through his smile, his merry eyes looking this way and that with wonder. Then he saw the moon. The clouds shone white and silver under its brilliant gaze, perfectly framing it. It hung there in space, so big, so full, and so bright, a precious orb, a world of mystery so close, but still beyond his reach. It had smudges on its lovely face. Maybe those were mountains and craters across its silver fields, or islands floating in a shining sea. Merlin opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again. He had no words.